Pinotage was the Great Red Hope of 1994, extending maybe to 1999. Then there was another Great Red Hope that superseded it. And right around 1999, going into the early 2000s, the next Great Red Hope was the grape Syrah, and also the idea that I mentioned earlier of Cape blends. Now, why Syrah? I think in the early years of its renaissance in South Africa, Syrah could obtain quite a lot of concentration and make very big wines and very powerful and expressive with oak. And I think in those years, 99 maybe to 2005 to 2007, that's how much of South African Syrah was vinted. And I think that makes perfect sense because that's the way the world of the red wine world was headed in those days of interest in concentration and the voluptuousness of new oak. Now what came along with that was also the idea of a Cape blend. I've seen less and less of Cape blend over the years, but the idea then, and also when I started researching South African wines, was something like a Bordeaux blend, or the Bordeaux family, or a Bordeaux style blend. Bordeaux, of course, has a host of grape varieties to it, the main five being Cab, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. And the idea of a Cape blend was that you would blend a wine like Bordeaux, that the summation would be greater, but that the lead variety was going to be Syrah, and Syrah would be the one that anchors the other varieties. Or at the very early part, the lead variety would be Pinotage, anchoring all the other varieties. I think it became a fairly serious thing and also leads us to another important part of South Africa's Renaissance, which is that there has flowed into South Africa an immense amount of foreign dollars and foreign vintners planting in this area, particularly with the idea of Cape blends. Cheval Blanc, Ausson, some of the most prestigious properties in Bordeaux, now own properties in South Africa with the idea of making these blends. But like I said, the idea of Cape blend kind of faded a little bit, and I don't see it mentioned that much anymore. What I do see is this, and Driefontein is our example of it, a Syrah as a single vineyard and single site. Now this is made by a man named Jasper Prats, who, like many of the producers that we've heard about already, have gone around the world working at internships and working at different places, and then come back to South Africa to make wines. Now, these wines under the Driefontein label are rather brand spanking new. I think he started at Long Ridge Winery in the 2000s, and I think these are from maybe 2015. His idea with these, and he's gone on a record and fairly explicit, it hasn't reached much of the international press, but if you read South African wine magazines, you get it. He's gone on record of saying that, one, South Africa can make absolutely world-class wines, and that there's no reason it shouldn't be, we shouldn't be in the case for him, making world-class wines. Okay, not a new idea there, but pretty phenomenal to have someone say it. The other thing he's gone on record for, and I can appreciate this, if you find it a little snotty, I can understand, is that South Africa should price its wines as if they are world-class, then they should be priced as such. Now, to make that a little bit softer as a saying, it's actually something that I hear from South Africa vintners quite a lot. There is, of course, that bulk market of South African wines that are still available, but if you're at a family farm or small-scale vineyard, you really can't survive competing at the bulk level. So you've got to make, one, better wines, and then you've got to price those wines so your family can survive. An easy enough equation, and this, of course, is not the most heinously priced wine, and I think it is absolutely world-class. Now, one other thing that Jasper Prats is fairly famous for is that he will gather together collections of wines in a particular field and taste them blind against South African wines. He makes a wine that's 100% Merlot that he tasted against Petrus. He and a group of a group of writers tasted against Petrus and Maceto, etc., and it came out favorable for him. And he's done this for many other varieties, and I think it's interesting to explore the thought that, hey, those wines are ever more expensive, into the hundreds of dollars, versus the wines that are here from South Africa and are much less expensive price than that. So here with this wine, the idea trying to make world-class Syrah, and very new idea because it's not about the concentration and it's not about the oak character. What it is about is, while the winery is based in Stellenbosch, this is actually coming from the southern end of Stellenbosch right up to the coast. It's on a mountain slope and sees fairly high altitude and also very cool climates coming off of the coast. What you get there is a cool climate Syrah. If Pinotage was named for Hermitage, maybe this Syrah is actually an example of an Hermitage-inspired Syrah. To me, there's wonderful notes of black pepper and touches of game to it, but there's also kind of a dry extract on the palate. It doesn't show oak, but it's got density and body. It's a fairly suave wine, but it's also rich without being heavy. Again, I think a very modern conception of winemaking in South Africa. The other interesting thing to me, and the tasters who are tasting it with me, my film crew, is it doesn't have any of that South Africa smell that we tasted in some of the Pinotages that we've had in the store. So again, I think here was the example, and maybe still is the example, of the next great red hope of South Africa, Syrah.